The British have won.
The Battle of Long Island, also known as the Battle of Brooklyn, began on August 27, 1776. It ended on August 30, 1776. The British struck through the Jamaican Pass during the night of August 26th and the 27th. The Americans already put up fortifications in New York on the orders of George Washington.
At the beginning of the war, the Americans began with about 14,000 men, while the British had 20,000 to 32,000. The British outweighed the Patriots 3-1. The Patriots had no chance of winning with the numbers that they had compared to the British. George Washington was holding out hope that his untrained soldiers would be able to hold back the British, just enough to tire them out. At this time, Congress had officially declared the Americas to be free and independent states.
The British were embarrassed after being driven from Boston and had to go to New York. They were forced out of Boston by the Americans, who used a stolen cannon to drive them out. The British needed New York, so they could go up the Hudson River and steal New England from the rest of the colonies. Plus, New York had a larger loyalist population, which makes for a friendlier host. At the same time, the African American population were questioning if the words of Thomas Jefferson, "all men are created equal," applied to them. The idea of all men are created equal was a twisted way of saying all white men who owned property were created equal, and therefore corrupted the system that Americans were built on.
The Patriots were under the command of George Washington, Israel Putnam, William Alexander, as well as General John Sullivan and Lord Stanley. The troops fought hard as the redcoats attacked. Even though they had 1/3 of the numbers, they still fought with a purpose. General Howe was the leader of the British troops and fought the idea of going to New York instead of Boston. New York was a major port city, and if they were to capture New York, the war would be in the bag for the British. Washington saw their plan early and evacuated his troops to safety. Without this plan from Washington, the war would have been over.
Originally, the British were going to storm the fort on Brooklyn Heights, but everyone had already been evacuated to New York, so the British changed their route and stormed New York instead. Here, the small city of New York could not take the weight of thousands of soldiers ready to attack at any moment.
The British Army had 400 warships. Each ship carried 16 cannons and 1,000 troops. They were all heavily armed and very well trained. They all had battle experience, and this allowed them to have a big upper hand on the American troops. The British had tried to recruit African Americans by telling them if they were to join their side, they would be rewarded with freedom from their masters.
The Americans were forced to retreat towards Brooklyn Heights. 1,600 of Sterling's men were forced to surrender. Their surrender allowed Putnam's men to escape Brooklyn Heights. General John Sullivan and Lord Sterling were captured.
New Jersey had fallen to the British. The deaths were horrifying. 1,719 Americans were killed or wounded, and 1,186 captured. The British had only lost 392. The British have won.